Welcome back, everyone, to another one-on-one with Jerry Hall. Today's conversation is with golf pro slash PGA participant, Mr. Phil Wright. Now, Phil Wright's story, as it pertains to finding cryptocurrencies, exploring cryptocurrencies, and how they have integrated in his life along with his golf career, is very interesting. Phil brings a history in crypto dating back all the way to 2010. Very fascinating to hear stories that were from people who were dabbling, right, in that time frame, because it was a completely different world than it is today. Just as in 10 years from now, it'll be a completely different world than what we're experiencing now. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope that you enjoy it also, because it's coming at you right now. So Mr. Philip Wright, gosh, I'm actually really thrilled. Been waiting for this conversation for a while. How are you doing down there in Australia?
Yeah, mate. Look, we've just come out of 100 days of full lockdown. Now, to give you an idea with this COVID, we've had some of the strongest, toughest lockdowns of anywhere in the world. We've been locked down. Uh, People have been getting JobKeeper. It's a payment, a fortnightly payment here from the government. Masks were mandatory. It still are. You couldn't travel any further than 5 kilometres from your home. You needed a permit downloaded from the government and signed by your employer to go to work, and that was checked on buses and trams and trains. So we've just come out of 100 days of that, and right now, the last 3 days, we've had 0 cases.
Well,
So
that's wonderful. Hey, I wanted to
yeah,
ask you about that. With this stimulus in
yeah,
this like payroll protection and or unemployment or whatever you're calling the funding,
yeah,
I distinctly remember when I was doing a bit of research into real estate around the world. This had to be back October, November of last year, so the
right,
end of 2019. And
yeah,
one of the things I remember I found was shocking was the elevated real estate market in Australia. And I looked into it, and it really seemed like it had come from the easy access to low interest loans. And what I was wondering through this COVID time period,
yeah, yeah.
how many like laws or things were put into place to protect folks that were in homes maybe that didn't belong to them or they had a loan on. Like, we have a thing here in the States called forbearance, right? But it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're forgiven of the payments. They're just delayed. You have to make
Right.
them up later. And I was curious, with the stimulus that you got, was it what is your real estate market looking like as a result of this, quote unquote, now that we're 7 months out of into this weird
Sure,
COVID
sure,
world?
sure. Well, the Reserve Bank just yesterday, Reserve Bank of Australia just dropped interest rates again. So it's currently 0.01% is our interest rate. So we're heading downward. Um, Australians historically have always had a love affair with the what we call the quarter acre block. That is the house, the little picket fence, the backyard where we could play our cricket and football and other things like that. We've had a love affair with that sort of setup, even from a young age. When you start work, you're working towards your first house. That was your big thing. In other parts of the world, they're working on a more condensed. They live in apartments, they rent. A lot of them. A lot of people just rent their lives. They don't own a property. They invest in other things. A love affair uh, with real estate. Now, in saying that, though, there's many thousands of people that have been given the forbearance aspect that you've got for the next 3 to 4 months. I think January, February, it starts kicking in, and they start to need to. A lot of them start to have to pay it back. But there's been many thousands of people that have gone to banks to try and rework their mortgages and other things like that. So I would say we're not out of the woods yet. You know, we're as I said, we're just out of a 100-day lockdown. Restaurants and bars right now can't hold more than 20 to 50 people, depending on the size of the bar. I went to a place on the weekend with my wife and a couple of friends down on the water. I live in the CBD of Melbourne, Central Business District, and on the water down there is a place called the Arbory. It's a barge about 100 yards long. It has tables and umbrellas and God knows what on it. You can order food. Seats probably 500 people, but can only have 70. They're working on a 5% staff limit right now, so they've got staff they can't employ currently. This weekend, the government, the state government, are going to open up again. Hopefully, a few more options with those restaurants and cafes. Open up maybe to 50 to 100 people per outlet. So, you know, we had the biggest horse race in the world yesterday, the Melbourne Cup. It actually is a public holiday here for this bloody horse race, if you could believe that. And we normally have 100,000 at the Melbourne Cup, and we had no one there. The only people there were jockeys and stewards and a couple of others.
And television cameras.
Crazy. So yeah, Australians have a love affair with property. But in saying that, I think in the next 6 to 8 months or so, we will have a bit of a bust, I reckon. There's a lot of people that are overcommitted, above their means. It's not going to be good. I think we've still got the worst ahead of us, but at least with the zeros that we've had in cases the last 3 days, the government are loosening the strings a bit and letting us get out and about a little bit more. So that's a good thing.
Well, that's a good thing. I'll tell you, so why I pursued you so vigorously to get you on the show is two things. One, the fact that you're a crypto enthusiast, but also the fact that you're a professional golfer. And there is this wonderful list of qualities that I have found, through my interviews with folks that are like Navy SEALs, professional athletes, people that have achieved, we'll say, some of the highest levels of their chosen, whatever they've decided to put their time and energy into. And it's these qualities that I like to identify, because if I can identify a quality that leads to success, then I have a better chance. If I can identify it, I can mirror it. I can try to learn about that principle, adopt it for myself, and then exhibit it, and hopefully get the result, and hopefully get fantastic results. So that's kind of my little fascination. I don't know where to start. Maybe let's start with golf. What an incredibly difficult sport. I grew up an athlete. I lettered in everything in high school with the exception of golf.
Okay. All right. Well, basically,
I played some golf, and I'm telling you, it is difficult to be good at it.
Yeah. Look, my brother and I started from a very young age, played with dad, just started with hitting a ball around a public golf course when we were 5, 6 and 7. And then from there, when we got old enough, I think you could join a private club in Melbourne at around age 10 to 12. He joined us up at a private club in Melbourne here. The thing with private clubs is that the onus is put on you to behave, number one, as a young kid. If we don't hit a perfect shot, we like to smash that club against a tree or whack the ground with it, but you've got to behave. When you finish your round of golf, you've got to buy those in your group a drink. If you do well in the competition, you've got to give a speech. You've got to dress well. So I grew up with those kinds of traits, I guess, that if I didn't behave myself, I wouldn't play the game I loved. So someone once said to me, if you do a job you love, you never need to work a day in your life. Well, I've been lucky that I've been able to work in China in 2001 to 2004. I worked at Mission Hills Golf Club in Shenzhen in China, an hour over the Hong Kong border. I worked for a guy there called David Ledbetter, who is in the top. If you Google David Ledbetter,
I know who he is.
Yeah, so I worked at his academy there. Mission Hills has 12 golf courses, all owned by one family, the Chu family. And if you imagine a suburb surrounded by golf courses, that's pretty much it. There were 10 coaches. There was a couple of Aussie coaches, a couple of Americans, a few English coaches there. So I was lucky enough to sort of do some good training there. Got to know China a bit, and when I came back, and I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but when I came back and got into crypto and had a look at VeChain and the counterfeiting option, the what's the term? The QR code. Jeez.
Oh, right.
Too early in the morning. QR code that you can scan to prove authenticity. Having lived in China for about 4 years and seeing the amount of copies that would come out of there, I sort of thought, gee, you know, that's a real big thing. And that will all tie in, I reckon, with the UBI, Universal Basic Income, that they've already tested in Shenzhen in southern China just a month or two ago. But getting back to the golf, sorry, I diverged. I tend to do that a bit. My brain tends to go.
It's a very interesting set of topics, right? So golf afforded you the opportunity to go to different countries, and there in that by itself, when you get exposure to different cultures and different languages, different ways of what, like you talked about the golf club having kind of a set of ethics that you needed to adhere to. Well, going to another country is really no different. They have a cultural set of ethics that it's a good idea to adhere to, or you could be deemed, you don't want to break laws, you don't want to go to jail, you don't want to ostracize yourself in a community that you're brand new in and trying to learn. So you kind of, you got to pick these things up. And I think that does something in the brain. When I talk to people who have traveled and spent long periods of time in other countries, I don't want to say, it just activates something in the brain. And maybe it's because there's on so many levels, you're learning so many new things at once.
Sure. I think a lot of it, when I talk to other people that have traveled, what I get with them is an adaptability within them, that they move through life with. In Vietnam, I moved to Vietnam for 4 years to work at Da Nang Golf Club as the golf pro there from 2010 to 2014, pretty much. I lived in a little town not far out of Da Nang called Hoi An. And each year they have king floods that come up from the river, and those floods, they come in and they would reach roof height. So the locals know that it's going to happen. They adapt before they move their counters and other things upstairs, and all the floors are tiled and things. And when the floods come, they move out for a while. They come back a week later. They get the hose the place out, and they're back working for another year. So and there's no big deal. They know it's going to happen. They adapt. And I think living in another country, the food is different. I'm lucky that I love all food, but the food is different. The culture is very much different. Both in Vietnam when I worked there and China, every year foreigners have to do a full health check. Mm-hmm. So you're sent off to a hospital for a full day. They check every hole on your body, and I mean every hole. So your teeth, your eyes, everything. So, they don't want you a drain on their health system. But look, the one thing I get out of talking with other people that have traveled like yourself is that you get an adaptability. I see, nothing's a real problem because you've been in a country where English isn't the spoken language, right. And you've had to work around it. You go shopping for clothes. I mean, I'm 6'3", and I'd walk into a shoe shop in China looking for a pair of size 14 shoes, and they would just shoo me out. They would just go, no, point to the feet and go, get out of here. So, it's a great experience at the same time, though. I'd do it all again, for sure. I met a lot of great people, and many to this day I'm still in touch with. So, as I said, my brother is a golf pro also, and he's been up in Hanoi for about 20 years now. So he comes back to Australia a couple of times a year and catches up with the folks, and then heads back up there. But yeah, he's more Asian now than Aussie. So
Right on. Well, you know, one of the it was interesting for those folks that obviously aren't privy to what we were chatting about before I hit the record button. You brought up something that I really found I think is really interesting. You know, as an investor in my digital assets, obviously my number one goal is to maximize a rate of return. Okay, great. And I think that's common with every single investor. However, there's something about this crypto asset space, this digital asset space that is beyond return on investment. Yes, we all want a return on our investment. Okay, but there's all this other stuff. I mean, you and I started having a conversation about blockchain protocols for provenance and governance as it pertains to elections,
sure.
identity,
Yep.
and these type of things. And I can't remember, and I've been alive through the PC. So
Mm-hmm.
PCs coming on to the scene, the obviously the internet happening. Um,
Yep.
Watched all the variations of communication from the landline to the analog pagers to the analog devices, which we would call the earliest cell phones, all the
Yep.
way in through the iterations into the digital communication world that we all have now with our Apple iPhones and
Sure. Sure.
Samsungs and Huawei's and all this, that, and the other thing. I was curious, beyond return of investment, what are some of the things that are just absolutely got you excited from this blockchain digital asset space?
You know, Jerry, I'll give you a little snapshot of where my head is with all of this. You're talking to a guy that is very open to anything new tech. Anything new is good. It almost kills me to say it, but I was involved in I was invested. Hello.
I lost you. You said
I
you were
was
invested in, and then I lost you.
Yeah. I don't know whether I should say the word, but the word is BitConnect.
Ah,
I was one of the lucky ones, Jerry. Actually, I got involved in it before it went bust in because it was all a Ponzi.
right.
I got involved in it through the middle of 2017. Got out about December 2017. My wife was very into it as well. She saw what was happening with me because you were getting 1 or 2% a day return. I mean, I was getting I was getting 1 to 200 bucks a day US. And I'm going, this has got to explode. This isn't real. And then it kept on going. I'm thinking, I've got to get out of this. And it was at a point where they were wanting me to invest a big chunk, you know, 20 odd $1,000. And I didn't end up doing it, thank Christ, because in January of, I think mid-January 2018, it hit the wall. But just to give you an idea of where I'm at, when I saw that, I'm sort of thinking, what's this coins? What are these coins that can return this money? Like, this is unbelievable stuff. You know, I saw a guy driving down the road on riding down the road on a single wheel unicycle that's motored called a 9bot1 out of Korea. And it's motored, it goes up to 20k an hour, a single wheel. And I looked at him and I ran up and stopped him. I said, mate, what's this all about? And he goes, oh, it's from Korea. It's a unicycle. It goes to 20 Ks. You don't need to do anything, just stand on it. And it's got a gyro in it. And so I bought one. And because I thought, damn it, I want to learn how to bloody ride this thing. So I'm very just into new stuff.
Uh,
You know, before I went to Vietnam in 2010, I'd heard about this Bitcoin in 2010. And I remember being in the pro shop of the golf club I was working at before I went to Vietnam. And I Googled Bitcoin. And I might have typed it as two separate words back then. Bitcoin had came up wrong, and I wrote in Bitcoin again because I wasn't sure of the wording. And at that point in January of 2010, if you look it up, it was about 8 cents. $100 of it then. Today's price, I did the sums the other day, it was probably around 22 mil, $100. So my story with Bitcoin pretty much was that I saw the price at 8 cents. I'm thinking, well, what do I do? Do I just send a check into the ether? How do I, what's it? There weren't exchanges,
Right.
we all know the story. There were no exchanges. They were on off ramps and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of thought, what's this? It sounds okay. I'm interested. Anything that was anti-banks and anti-government, I was kind of going, wow, this is good. And early days, I was very much anti-bank, anti-government. But the more I delved down the rabbit hole, I realized that governments aren't going to go away. Banks aren't going away. They're going to be part of our lives, whether we like it or not, for the rest of our lives. So the XRP discovery came along, and I sort of started looking into that. And I had mates that weren't too happy with me jumping off BTC, but at the end of the day, you've got to go where the big money is, and you've got to go where governments and the power are, I think. So for me, XRP make up most of my portfolio. Vet's another one I hold pretty heavily. I think after my time in China with the QR code and the authorization of goods being made, I think that's going to be very big. You've got to imagine though that all those people in China that are making these copy Rolexes and Louis Vuitton bags and stuff. There's going to be an awful lot of people not working as a result of clampdowns on all these copies with the authorization, I reckon. And that's where the UBI, I think, will start to kick in a bit, that the government is trying to start already. And they did a bit of a run, didn't they, a couple of months ago in Shenzhen with the UBI, or as a test at least. It wasn't really. And I think I see in South Korea, they're trying it as well. They've got a UBI card for money that goes on your card each month, and you need to spend it in the area that you live. You don't need to apply for the government for that. It comes on your card. I'm not sure. I don't know. Part of me is a bit scared with all of this sort of government tentacles reaching into our lives. But I guess if we're early adopters, adopters of crypto technology and understand enough of years, it'll be, could be too late to get the gains we're not seeing currently, but we will see.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I find really interesting is some of the things that you talked about, I believe, support the case for digital assets. So for instance, having my identity verified on the blockchain, and if that's recognized, right, let's say it's recognized, now I don't have to do 25 different AML, KYC, blah, 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 blah. I have this thing. See my pay ID? That says this is who I am. It's authenticated. I'm authenticated. And then I have the ability to, anybody who wants to check my pay ID, I can control what I want released.
Yeah.
I can get a notification sent to me saying Citibank would like to look at your last 3 months utility bills. Do you want to allow that? And I have the choice in the moment to say yes or no. You know what I mean? That kind of thing is happening. The authentication protocols like VET, I own VET also. I'm a huge fan. I don't think it will eliminate counterfeiting. I do not believe that for 1 second, because I believe there is a huge market who does not care if it's authentic or not. I know women, if the bag says Louis Vuitton on it, they could care less if it's a $10 knockoff or the $1,000 real thing.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? They will, because you're not going to be able to know the difference, or in most of it's other women aren't going to know the difference from 20 yards away.
Oh, sure.
She's walking into the restaurant with her Louis Vuitton. Other women are going to go, "Ooh, she's got."
Oh, yeah. It would feed into medications and stuff too. When I was up there, I was seeing a lot of
medication,
copy meds and stuff like that, which could be dangerous.
Correct.
and stuff.
Correct. The counterfeit drug stuff, the knockoff, all that weird stuff. I think, I mean,
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
fascinating. The reach this stuff has, like for instance, XRP is my largest holding in my digital asset portfolio for two reasons. One, when I got into the space, it seemed the most logical near-term adoption vehicle,
yep,
because I too said these industries like banking, money transfer, they're not going away. The FX market isn't going to go away. Being able to use the digital technology just from the liquidity and settlement aspect, it's the speed. So if I can sell my value in this and
yeah,
have it settled, and I now have access to that value immediately, as opposed to waiting 3 days for something to clear or
yeah,
this or that, the other, that's huge. But then, as I'll tell you, and I'll tell you this, I'm just being honest.
yeah.
The last 8 months of research, the long game tells me that, for instance, all these businesses that XRP is going to help, the truth of the matter is it's digital assets that are going to displace those businesses. Because the only thing keeping MoneyGram in business is the fact that you and I don't have a wallet to get, like, I can't send you directly. But the minute the public figures out that a digital wallet on their phone
Sure.
and their correspondent recipient has a wallet on their phone, it's game over for everybody who's in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The middleman, no need for the middleman anymore. Yeah.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, Jerry, I was.
it's going to destroy rent takers. So if banks want to stay in business, they're going to have businesses that aren't around gouging for money transfer. Well, we're already seeing blockchains do lending, and lending better and at better rates than the financial institutions. So that's a pillar that the banks aren't going to have. Money transfer, they're not going to have. What are banks going to do? If they're not the ones lending money and facilitating the movement of value around,
they're not going to be around. I think down the track that they'll custody cryptos anyway, won't they?
Right. Well, we had the OCC letter come out to clarify that it's actually already in law.
Yeah.
They just needed to be able to see these digital assets is exactly that, assets, and that banks can hold assets.
Sure. I'll tell you, getting back to the speed of XRP, and I've got to say, when I get some money and I buy some XRP, by the time I scroll back through my phone to my wallet, it's already there 9 times out. Yeah, it's fantastic. But during Christmas 2017-18, during the bull run there, when I was sending money to the exchange to try and cash a bit of it in, it's pretty scary with Bitcoin. You push that button and you're waiting half an hour or 40 minutes for thousands of dollars, especially when it's so new. I'd never done it before. Most of us had never done it before. Everyone was opening new accounts. They were locking down accounts, not opening any more new ones. And here I was, I pushed a button and there's, a handful of thousand in the ether flying around trying to find a home. And I'm sitting there just checking my phone every 5 minutes. It's scary. I didn't like it. And I rolled forward further than that. And I'm thinking, well, okay, if I'm a bit nervous with, say, 2,000 being sent, if 2,000 gets me a bit upset waiting 40 minutes, how am I going to be, if Bitcoin gets to its, the telephone numbers? I mean, I won't want to push the button on 50,000 or 100,000. You know what I'm saying? Because I'd be too scared. It's just crazy. Whereas at least with XRP, the thing I love about it is you push that button there and bang, 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 a few seconds, bang, in, good. I like that. And I think, You're talking to a bloke that was big on Bitcoin when he first got into it. I could see nothing else, but hindsight and a bit of education and a bit of deep diving has led me to believe now that Bitcoin will find its place. It's first mover advantage. It's the big brother of the whole house, but I don't see it playing much more of a role other than being a store of value. But it's up and down so much at the moment that store of value even is a bit dodgy.
Well, I've had the good fortune of interviewing a couple of folks that are in that world,
Right.
the world of big money, that is.
Yep.
And the truth is that the parameters in which they are assessing their investments in Bitcoin don't have anything to do with transaction times. They don't have anything to, you know what I mean? That those things are so not on their radar. What is on their radar, and I found this really, really interesting, and I think it applies to XRP as it would apply to any digital asset. So it's not just Bitcoin, it's any of them.
Yep.
For a long time, because the tech was so good, I thought this is a no-brainer. Institutions are going to come in and gobble this up. Easy to use. It solves so many problems. It's a no-brainer, right? And then I started, as my education, my financial literacy expanded, for instance, I started looking at institutions and how do they operate. So on one hand, every one of the board members of a hedge fund, right, or the partners could say, okay, this asset, we'll call it XRP, is a darling. We know it's a darling. However, the risk has nothing to do with the tech. It has everything to do with the market cap. And the reason being, because they're not talking about 10, 15, 20, $40,000. They're talking millions of dollars.
Sure. Sure.
And so when they look at an asset, there's two factors. Yes, there is the investment thesis, which is the projection going up, right?
Yep.
From a return on investment. But then there's also this element, and it's all part of their risk compliance part. And that is any asset they invest in has to have the liquidity that they could get out of it immediately.
Yeah, right.
Well, guess what? Bitcoin doesn't even have that kind of liquidity yet.
Yeah, right. Wow.
So that, when I start looking through the lens of somebody else, some things start to make sense for me. So basically what I see the digital asset space doing now, which I thought they were doing 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, but it's actually just starting to happen. The asset class is just now starting to de-risk itself in the eyes of institutions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Michael Saylor from MicroStrategies comes out, makes this big splash, $450+ million into Bitcoin. Well, one of the interesting elements of the decision-making process within MicroStrategies and the board and the whole enchilada was that their commitment is to hold that indefinitely. Right. It's a 100-year purchase.
Yeah.
Well, then your risk, you don't need liquidity to get out
Sure.
at a moment's notice if that's your reason for doing it.
Yeah, sure.
But investors like pension funds and endowment funds, and especially hedge funds and large funds that are going to open up their fund to the public to invest in, have to have the liquidity to get out if needed.
Yeah.
Like a 2008 market turmoil happens.
Yeah.
March 2020, or 2020 happens. No. They need to be able to, the liquidity needs to be there to shuffle. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, well, as I see the market cap inching up, and you and I'm sure you look every day just like I do. The last couple of days have not been good for us.
No.
But however, keep this in mind. The overall market cap has only dipped under 400 billion a couple of times, and for very short periods. In other words, we're building a new floor at that 400 billion level. The next jump will be, 650 billion. Once that floor is established and we make the next jump into the trillion-dollar floor, and it maintains that floor at $1 trillion, you will see a wave of money come into this space, and it'll make the 2017 bull run look like a normal couple of guys having a beer barbecue on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, nice.
And then it clicked for me. With that view, I was able to now frame my real trade view. See, before I had information based off of my common sense and my understanding of the world.
Yeah.
And I've come to find that was not a fully informed view.
Yeah. Do you trade, Jerry, or do you just hold?
No, I'm not a trader. I'm an investor.
Yep. Yeah. I've got a thing called Profit Trailer. It's just a bot I have running on my computer. Here I am not being able to unmute my mic with you a week ago, and here I am programming a bloody bot with crypto. So I've got about eight or 10 cryptos currently running around. We're in a big hole, but it's a bit of fun.
Now, this is an algorithm facilitated bot that is just performing preordained functions based off of parameters that were programmed into it.
No. With this one, you can get in behind it and put in your parameters. So you can get my early days for me when I was at my first golf club there. I was looking for a computer. I'd heard about the stock market and the money people could make on the stock market. So in the mid 1990s, I went into a department store in Melbourne here to look for a computer. And the salesman said to me, "Yeah, look, we've got this thing," and it was a big box, big white box with a big terminal next to it. And he said, "This is a computer. One day every house is going to have one of these." And I wasn't convinced. I've gone, "Well, what would every house want with one of these?" And he goes, "It's even got a feature on it called email." And I've gone, "Email? What's that?" He goes, "You send message. You'll be able to send a message to someone else or send attachments, all this." He was talking this strange jargon to me. So I got into stock market. I early days, did courses at night, read lots of books, all that sort of stuff. So I guess part of my grounding for crypto, I'm not too much into the tech, the TA side of crypto, because I think it's too manipulated.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the guys get on there and they do the resistance and all this sort of stuff, floors for the price and things, and draw graphs and charts and stuff. But to me at the moment, it's all too young, and there's a lot of manipulation going on that I don't sort of like. But basically, from those days of having a thing called a computer that I had to start up with an A/enter. It was a black screen with a flashing A drive, and I had to put DOS. DOS or something it was.
Yeah, DOS. Yeah.
There you go.
Basic DOS.
So from the early days, sort of got into a bit of the trading stuff, but from that, with this profit trailer, you can actually go in behind it on your computer and put in your parameters. Stop losses at certain points. When the 100-day crosses the whatever day, you can have a buy or a sell signal and all this sort of stuff. So I kind of enjoy it because I'm not playing with too much money. It's a bit of a joke thing. But in a little bull run, it's good because all the buttons are green and there's little sales and things going on around you at all times, and you enjoy seeing the green. But right now, mate, it's all red. And
now, are you arbitraging in between various exchanges? Like, does this particular thing? Obviously, you purchased the software or the service. They have all the APIs and stuff, and then you just plug in your parameters and say, "Here we go."
Yeah. I had to hook it in with Binance, and Binance. I deposit my crypto to Binance, a Bitcoin to Binance, and it appears in Profit Trailer. I had to supply my API to Binance and set it all up that way. I don't use any other. My main exchanges are Binance for all of my big stuff. I've got a couple of exchanges, CoinSpot and CoinJar here in Australia. I think CoinJar is Australian. It's up in
I'm
Sydney.
shocked you didn't mention BTC markets. I thought, being an XRP supporter, that you'd at least have an account with them.
I might have to have a look, mate. I didn't. To be honest, I like keeping things nice and simple. So,
Yeah.
you know, Binance was where my profit trailer is, and some other stuff, and then, you know, I needed an exchange. I think early days I might have had trouble with the KYC AML stuff. A couple of exchanges overseas, they would ring at strange times in the morning to confirm my identity, you know, and I'd miss the bloody phone call. It was coming from
Right.
Switzerland or something. But so ended up just getting a place from Sydney that was able to set it up for me, and I just buy my crypto there. You know, they've got a Ledger Nano or two, and you just store it offline. It's going to be interesting though when you know, they always say, you know, keep your stuff off the exchanges, but at some stage we're all going to have to move chunks back onto the exchanges to move them out, you know, to preset sales, you know, to have, I've got stuff at Binance now, you know, waiting to hit a target, you know, and it's miles off at the minute. But when the shit hits the fan, pardon the French, you know, I don't want to be moving big chunks of stuff all around. I'd rather have it set there and sitting there. But yet in doing that, you're leaving big chunks of stuff on the exchanges, the very things we're told not to leave that stuff on, you know. So it's a bit of a difficult one at times, you know, to keep your good stuff protected. For me, XRP is untouchable. I just it's in a drawer. I just keep that to the side. I have and VET to an extent. AGI is one that I've got involved in. Artificial General Intelligence, Ben Goertzel. I saw a Joe Rogan podcast. You should have a look at it. It's fantastic. This guy, very, very David Schwartz-like. You know, those super intelligent beings that you get hypnotized with what comes out of their mouths, you know.
The ticker is AGI.
AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. It's running at about, it was running at about 5 cents, I think, Aussie.
Okay.
But it's out of Hong Kong. He was involved in the robotic, you know, that robot lady. What was her name?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I know who you're talking about. I forgot her name.
Sophia.
Of course, Sophia.
Sophia. But yeah, look, you know, I tend to think that, you know, casting our minds forward into the future there, you know, artificial intelligence, I think, is got to be somewhere in amongst it, doesn't it? With everything else that's happening.
Absolutely.
So I sort of thought at 5 cents, I think it reached an all-time high last bull run of about $1. So I'm sort of thinking, gee, you've got to get on board. So little obscure little things like that, but I tend to look for what I tend to look for are the people behind it. You know, when I look at Ripple and I see Garlinghouse, see Schwartz, you know, and the others, I just see a classy team that know a trillion more things than I do about the space and are controlling the rocket ship, and they know what they're doing. They've been around, they're meeting the best people, the most important people in the world. I mean, when you've got, you know, Ripple management meeting with government heads of countries like they are and like they have been, it says a lot. That, you know, there's so much good news about Ripple at the moment, you know, and XRP, you know. So,
well, like $1,000 investment at 5 cents, if it hits $1, that's $200,000.
There you go. There you go.
That is an incredible return on investment.
Yeah, have a look at it.
Right?
ICX Icon is another one that I'm involved in. That's up around 30 cents at the moment. It has jumped from 30 to 60 to 70 cents. So that's one that I think reached about $10 or $11 in the bull run. So I tend to look for things that, look, just because they reach that in the bull run, there's no guarantees on what it could do in the next bull run. It might not get anywhere near it. But I tend to have a good look at the white papers on these projects, and I get on YouTube and I sort of have a look at who's behind it, and I just go down the rabbit hole. But I was really taken with Ben Goertzel on the AGI project there, and his interview with Rogan, and very Schwartz-like. He's got the unruly locks, and he's talking futuristics and stuff, and I got hypnotized. I've gone, wow, this guy, my God, like, this is fantastic. This is, gee. Some of it's scary, when he's talking about robots and the way it's going to affect employment in the future and all that sort of stuff. But it kind of ties in a little bit down the track with the way things are going anyway with UBI. There won't be as many jobs around, Elon Musk has said that.
There'll be different jobs, and the expansion of what we would call the freelance workforce versus the 9 to 5, employed workforce.
Yeah.
We've seen that expand, dramatically over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if you were, you said you were an independent contractor, people immediately assumed you were in the construction trades.
Sure.
Because that was the industry that had independent contractors.
Yeah.
Now, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an independent contractor, and he could be a programmer, he could be a marketing guy, he could be somebody that's setting up just social media platforms for companies that want to have an online presence, who are switching from their web-based stuff to now more of a consumer-facing social media marketing approach. The freelance marketplace or workforce or whatever you want to call it has expanded exponentially.
Yeah, I think COVID's had a lot to do with that as well, Jerry.
Sure.
With working at home. I know in Australia here, as I said earlier, I live in the CBD in Melbourne. It's a dead set ghost town. You've normally got traffic and congestion and people walking everywhere every day here in the city. But my last day of work was back in March. So, it's been a while, but the city is pretty quiet at the moment. It's only just starting to get back because we're just coming out of this 100-day lockdown. So a lot of my friends are working from home, and their companies are yet to make decisions on whether that will be maybe part of their role moving forward. And then you've got some governments on whether they stay in those buildings that they had in the city.
Well, I'm looking at the clock. Our hour is flying by, and I don't want this conversation to have ended without addressing one of the things I think is where you have so much to give, and that is, as somebody that has competed at the highest level, you've competed on PGA tours, you are teaching people how to play golf. There is the physical element, which needs practice and agility and proper form and all those things. I'm interested in the game between the ears.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the little things that separate somebody who has natural gifts but doesn't seem to quite make the cut versus somebody who puts it all together.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you a little story. Before I turned pro, I caddied around the world for a guy called Ian Baker Finch. He comes from Queensland. He won the British Open in 1991. You'd have to look it up. It'd be 1991, 1990. A good mate of mine. He, very good player. He commentates now during the US Masters. You'll hear him on the television doing the commentary there. We'd play cards in the downtime, and he wouldn't be happy unless he won every last chip off you. He's a very, very, very quiet, smiling assassin, I called him, because he wouldn't give up unless he got your last chip, but was nice with it. So he was kind of smiling and happy, but there was no way he was going to lose. So look, golf's very very interesting. It's got a lot of parallels to life. You could roll up to the golf course with a beautiful set of clubs and beautiful clothes and a lovely hat and all this sort of stuff, you might look the part, but it doesn't mean you could always carry it off. You could get someone else that just rolls up with an average set of clubs and he's got good form and he plays a lot better. But there's a number of good parts to playing good golf. You know, number one, of course, it probably helps if you've started younger. You know, I went snow skiing many years ago, and I had little 10-year-old kids cutting S's in front of me down the slopes whilst I was falling over with skis over my shoulder. So these are kids that have grown up on the snow. So it's the same with any sport, I guess. You get kids that start a sport young enough and they're going to gradually sort of move into it, and make it look effortless, I guess. If you pick up a sport, I'm not a 10-pin bowler, but if I went down to the alley today and started rolling a few balls down, a pro might take me aside and say, look, you're doing this wrong. You've got to do this, got to spin it this way or that way. So I think starting at a young age is important. You know, good instruction, I guess, if you can get taught correctly. You know, there's a number of different, ways you can hit a golf ball, from the Mo Norman one plane method to a more traditional, better style of sort of hitting a golf ball. But look, I'll tell you, I'll give you a little anecdote, and I haven't ever said this publicly. It's your show is going to go out to many thousands of people. I'm sure he won't mind me saying it, but it was during the Australian Open of probably would have been about 88, Australian Open, 89. And he was in a bunker greenside in the last round. And he used to quite often practice with the flag out of the hole, because the flag fluttering would put him off when he's in the bunker trying to get out. And there was crowd around the 18th hole. He wasn't looking like winning. He was going to finish in the top 10 somewhere. But the flag was fluttering a bit, and I stood on the side of the bunker there with the rake in the back. And he was over the ball, and he stepped away from the ball. And he said to me, he called me over. He said, Phil, do you think the people in this crowd would think I was a bit of a big noter or a show off if I wanted you to take the flag out? Because obviously in golf, if you're on the front of a green and the pin's up the back and you tell someone to take the flag out, it's basically telling them that you're very confident that you'll hold it. But to be in a bunker and have the flag taken out is like, and he just wanted clarification from me, his caddy, on what the crowd might think of him. And it stayed with me to this day, how humble, how pure of thought he was to be thinking of the crowd rather than the shot at hand. And he got out to within a foot, and I think he tapped it in with a sand iron as well. He didn't need his putter, he was so close. But when you said just before, what is up here with the good players, it's an inner confidence of the job that you can do. With Ian, it was very much a humbleness within him of what the crowd would be thinking as well. And it's a very unique quality. It's a very strange thing. But he was a hell of a competitor and would hate to lose. If he had a bogey on a hole or hit a poor tee shot, he wouldn't be happy. If I gave him a wrong yardage into a hole, if I told him it was 160 and it was only 150, he wouldn't be happy. That didn't happen too often, thank Christ. But just at that level, and I saw some great players at that level, the Greg Normans and the Jack Nicklauses of that era and stuff, Freddie Couples. Those players had a great humbleness about them, but an inner strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. There's an element, and I've seen this throughout so many different quote unquote industries, right? I've interviewed top professional athletes, guys that are going into the Hall of Fame, right. Navy SEALs, this kind of group of people do have a humility to them. And it's one of the, it's like one of the gentlemen told me, I don't wage war with an opponent. The war is always up here against me.
Right.
Therefore, I never need to, have anything but the deepest level of respect for my environment, whether that be adversaries, the people
Yep.
I'm competing against,
Yep.
or or even somebody that may be vocally doing me wrong, because
Sure.
I know the war that I'm fighting is
Yeah.
between my ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, when I guess, I mean, I have not reached that level of mastery in very many things, but I can relate to it from my days in construction. I was very good at whatever. If I picked up a hammer, and that's what because I started real young too. I mean, I started building things at 12 years old and started getting
Right.
for it when I was 15, and da 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 da.
But I can sense a
Maybe
very,
there's
I can
something to
sense
that youth, but there's a confidence because you can do it. Now all the obstacles are up here; they're not out there.
yeah, sure, sure. I think,
Interesting.
I think you have a humbleness about you on the show. I think you've got, one of the best shows on YouTube. I like it, and many people do like it because you cut you cut through a lot of the fluff and get to the people that are watching these shows. And there's a great show. I don't know how much time we've got. I'll try and keep it short. There was a great show in Australia called Front Up, and all it was a guy with a camera, another guy with a microphone. He would go up to strangers in the street and just ask them if he could have 10 minutes of their time. And he would start a conversation with these total strangers who would all have fantastic stories. He went up on the beach one day to a guy who was sitting on the sand looking out at the water. And he said, "Look, can we have 5 minutes with you?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, it's the first time my feet have been in the sand, first time I've had the sun on my back for 20 years." And he said, "Oh, do you mind if we ask so what the issue was, what the problem was?" He said, "Yeah, I've just come out of jail. I got out yesterday, and I mixed with the wrong crowd at a young age and went in for murder. I was involved in a couple of bad things, and I've learned a lot. And I'm just sitting on the beach, just enjoying the sun and enjoying the water." And like, you sat there just mesmerized with the storytelling. And I see a lot of that with you, with your connection with people as well. And,
Oh,
you
thank
know,
you.
inwardly, you would be very confident in running your Jerry V Hall podcast. And as a result, it shows. And that's why your following is increasing each week as it
Well,
is. So
thank
I
you,
think
Phil. That,
it's,
that is so very kind of you to
yeah,
say.
no, not at all.
It's been the joy of this show has been that it's always had a purpose to bring value to others through little things. Like
Yeah,
if it's how can I take something from this so that tomorrow I'm a better investor,
yeah,
or how I can take something for this and tomorrow I'll be a better student, and when I'm a better student I get a better view, and from a better view I can make better decisions. Well, if I make better decisions then I produce better outcomes.
sure, sure.
You know what I mean? That's been the whole purpose of this show and the whole
Yeah,
purpose of my
yeah,
channel. And
yeah,
although
yeah.
I haven't exploded like from the sub count to a lot of, and I don't care that I'm not trying to, that isn't the purpose of the show, is to get this huge subscriber base. It's to allow me this process of meeting and engaging with
Yeah, no,
incredible
it's good.
people
It's
and
good.
bringing that to the world. And if the world likes it and gains value from it, they'll leave comments, which a lot of folks do. I thank them so very much.
Yeah,
They'll hit the like button and they'll subscribe to the channel, and
that's it. That's it.
bada bing, bada boom.
Yep. No, fantastic.
Yeah, this was great. I'll tell you what, I don't know what the timing's like. So you're telling me it's morning right now, right?
It's we're spot on 11 a.m.
Okay. 2 hours.
Where are
You
you?
know what? I'm going to send you an invite at some point
Yep, yep.
to come on my live stream show on Friday nights. It'll be Friday noon your time ish.
I can do it I can catch up with you anytime at the moment.
That would
I'm
be cool. I'll have you on the live show sometime, because
yeah,
with your Bitcoin history and the fact that it sounds like you have a pseudo career going in crypto. You've crossed the Rubicon. You're no longer just a guy who parks some money in a digital asset. You're tinkering with algorithms and
Yeah. I enjoy. Look. You know, I have a bit of a potter in anything, whether it's riding an electric unicycle or tweaking my bot because it can't bloody pull a good trade.
uh-huh.
Most of the, I haven't got a clue really what I'm doing, but I enjoy the ride. It's been good, but listening to gentlemen like yourself and others on YouTube, I'm getting a great education, and it's making me a bit more of an astute investor in the space. And
Yeah.
as I said before, I really, I'd love to catch up with you on a live feed. And
I think the folks would love it. The engagement in the audience would be wonderful.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
you've really said it. I want to close on this, folks. Phil's reminded me yet once again, we're all in this together, right? We're all on this journey of life. Let's get the most out of it that we can. Let's share with each other and bring as many people with us along the way. These next couple of months and next couple of years are sure to be very exciting for all of us, whether we're tweaking with trading bots or parking our, dollar cost average investments into a nano ledger S. So from Australia and Costa Rica, until next time, everybody, pura vida.